we thought we'd open the webinar to just, let's say, let's break the stigma. Let's talk about World Mental Health Day. The World Mental Health Day does change themes each year, and this year's theme is access to services, and everyone deserves good mental health and access to mental health services. So a bit of housekeeping for us. Everybody will be on mute, aside from myself and Susan. If you have any questions, you can raise your Teams hand, which is on the top bar. You can put a chat in or a Q&A, and Liz, our Director of Marketing, will be looking at questions and hands being raised throughout the 30 minutes. So do feel free to ask myself and Susan any questions. I can't actually see how many people we've got at the moment, but I know that we've got well over 50, 60 people. We've had 250 people register to this webinar, which is just absolutely mind-blowing for me. I think we've broke the internet today. So thank you so much for all those people who registered and are joining now. I can see some familiar names and faces there. So great to have you here today. Some of you will know about the charity. Some of you are brand new to our services. So we're going to be reminding people about our helpline today. So Susan, thank you first for joining us today. Susan Graham is Managing Director of FLB Print Group Limited in Scotland, and also President of Print Scotland. So if you are from a company in Scotland today, it's great for you to connect to Susan after the webinar. And also, if you're part of a large organisation where you have hubs or like factories or depots in Scotland, then Susan's a great person to connect to after today's webinar. So we'll be hearing from Susan in a bit, but thank you for joining us today, Susan.
Thank you.
So Liz, shall we kick off by showing our short video? Thank you very much.
We are the printing charity. For almost 200 years, we have been providing practical, emotional and financial support for people in print, paper, packaging, publishing and graphics, whenever we are needed, throughout careers and into retirement. We know life doesn't always go to plan. Our free confidential employee helpline provides in-the-moment emotional support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We provide grants to help people in our sectors who are struggling with an unexpected expense or everyday essentials, whether they're in work, unemployed or retired. And we signpost people to specialist resources and services when needed. Our retirement living is for people of reduced financial means who are retired from our sectors. They're friendly, welcoming and supportive almshouse communities where help is on hand if it's needed. And through our annual Rising Star Awards, we provide training and development grants to help the industry's emerging talent shine, equipping them with the skills they need to build a successful career in our vibrant, ever-evolving industry. From practical and emotional help to financial assistance, supporting skills development and retirement living. Remember, we're here for you.
Thank you, Liz. We do have lots of videos on our website as well. So if you do come across them, then feel free to share those videos with your colleagues. So just to start with, there is a mixture of people. We've actually got 106 people on the webinar, so thank you so much. There's a mixture of people here. Some will be HR, some will be mental health first aiders, some will be part of wellbeing teams, and some might be on the start of their wellbeing journey, or others might be quite developed in their wellbeing journey. So as a reminder, our helpline here at the charity is funded by the charity, so it's completely free of charge, it's confidential. We have emotional support, which is 24/7, 365. And we have practical support, which is Monday to Friday, 8 till 8. And the practical support is a bit like Citizens Advice Bureau. But for anybody who is new to us, then you can reach out to us after this webinar, and we can put you in contact with your local relationship manager to go through further details. So thank you, Liz. Next slide. So not only do we have, as I've just mentioned, the in the moment support and advice and information, but we also have support for managers and mental health first aiders, which will just come up now. Thank you very much. So support for managers, with the topic of World Mental Health Day. Managers are under pressure. Managers may be feeling pressure within their teams, whether there's conflict, whether there's redundancies, or whether just something's happening. And managers can actually phone and use the helpline and to say, I'm a manager at a company and I'm feeling really stressed at the moment with what's happening, and they can use it to access the services as well. As can mental health first aiders and wellbeing teams. So if you think that some companies may be small and may just have one mental health first aider, and you know what happens when that person's had a difficult conversation, they might not have somebody else in the company to talk to process that information that they've just been discussing with the person that they're supporting. So they can phone the helpline to say, I'm a mental health first aider, I've had a difficult conversation, and I'd really like to talk about how I process these emotions and these feelings. So please remember that our helpline is there to support wellbeing teams, whether you're a small company or a big company, whether you have support or not, you can phone individually to get support. And then the final two pieces of our services, I'm not going to touch on today. Those with the helpline know that we have PayPlan, which is a debt advice service. And we also have My Possible Self, which is a lovely app that everyone has access to. So again, not going to talk about that today. That can be discussed after today's webinar for those who want to speak to the charity about our services. So, like to say again, delighted to have Susan here, Managing Director of FLB Group and President of Print Scotland. And Susan's going to share her experience today as not just a mental health first aider, but she's also a mental health first aid leader as well. So Susan, do you want to do an intro to begin with, please?
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you. So yes, as Nicola's alluded to, I've been in the print industry for about 33 years now, and most of my background was in operational management and HR. So for the HR practitioners out there, you'll know that the day-to-day operational side, we come across all sorts, and it has to be dealt with in some cases very delicately. In about 2018, I interviewed a young girl for a job in our engineering team, and she, as part of her CV, she said, you know, I'm a mental health first aider and I could bring that to your organisation if you don't have that already. And it really, I was intrigued by this. I thought, oh, I'm not aware of this. So I looked into it a bit further and decided, while I had employee wellbeing as a large part of my remit, we were extremely good at health and safety. We had lots of processes. We managed our health and safety to the ultimate. We didn't actually have employee well-being as part of it. We did in terms of the physical side, whether it was dermatitis or manual handling, but we didn't actually have anything within the company that was addressing potentially anything to do with mental health. So I looked into it a bit further with St Andrew's First Aid, and I learned that there was a series of qualifications that we could gain, and I decided it needed to be led from the top. At the time, I was HR director, and I decided that regardless of who you were in the organisation, it was very important for everyone to be managing their physical health and their mental health. So I put it forward to the then managing director to say that I wanted to create a safe space, and we wanted to become an employer where well-being was at the key and heart of how we managed our people. As many of you will know if you've been in the print industry a long time, we can have people enter our business as apprentices. And in our case, we've had employees with 40, 50 years service. So they've gone through their entire life with us. And while work is one part of it, all the other attributes, their life going on in the background, whether it's having children, marriage, buying a house, bereavement, all these things contribute to that employee's well-being. And in order to get the best out of our employees, we have to understand that there is life outside of the organisation, and the best way to support our employees is understanding that there's a safe place for them to come. They can talk about mental health. There's no stigma attached to that. So I decided to take the Leading First Aid course, and that's about 6 years ago now, and I did that with St Andrews, and it was 3 days, very intense. I learned a lot about myself in that course, and I learned the fundamentals about what was important for ensuring that we could start to have this wellbeing and employee hub within the organisation.
Okay. No, carry on, Susan. Sorry.
So that was the first stage. I thought, right, well, how do I get this out there? How do I get this to flow? So again, having a few conversations with managers and understanding the day-to-day issues that they had, whether, again, as Nicola alluded to, whether it was conflict in a team, it was learning, what was actually at the root cause of that. I introduced the mental health risk assessment and stress risk assessment into the organisation so that when people were coming forward, we had a tool for them to go to and actually start to break down what was perhaps causing their issues, whether it be workplace related or whether it be external life. Normally from an experience, it's a culmination of things, but not everyone wants to talk about their personal life. There was a lot of stigma attached to that. Again, being in this industry a long time and people working in the industry a long time, the culture was very, very different when I arrived here. It was very male dominated. The women were kind of seen in specific roles, etc. And I wanted to change that culture. I wanted to make sure that everyone was equal, made sure that everyone was equitable, they had a voice to hear. So I encouraged as many people as I could to go on the course. And in doing so, if we had people at various levels within the organisation who understood the benefits of employee wellbeing and mental health within their teams, and being able to talk to their peers or somebody at a higher level, then this would start to change the culture. And it did. It actually did. We would have situations where employees were in difficult situations. They would either, if they didn't feel comfortable talking to me, they could talk to a peer or they could talk to their manager. Their managers were it actually brought a lot of empathy into the organisation. And where, dare I say, the old culture was quite... It was a very old school culture, I'm going to say. It broke down those barriers where I would say particularly the males felt they could actually be themselves. And they could actually say, I've got a problem, I'm really worried about my daughter, this is happening, and I don't know how to deal with that, it's affecting me at work, I'm really worried. It was like, oh wow, it was a real revelation, particularly with the men. The women were probably, they were probably more prone to talk about things in a safe environment, but not the men, because that was the culture. The culture was no, stiff upper lip and all that. So it broke that down. So it did create a lot of empathy in the workplace, and performance management changed. And it changed in a way that rather than just look at whether the job was being done right or wrong, or whether the employee was performing, was there actually something else? If you were looking at something, was there a demeanour change? Was there something perhaps that you'd known this person and it was changing? And it was actually about starting the conversation. So we did a lot of media within the organisation that was like, just have a chat. So let's start let's start the chat going. And we had at the time quite a big organisation, so we kind of had safe rooms, and a couple of rooms allocated where we would encourage that. I also encouraged things like bringing your children to work. So rather than have just work experience, etc., to change the culture and to make it a safe environment, I would encourage employees to bring their children to work and introduce them and say, how would we want our family or our children to be treated in the workplace? So I did the SCQF level 6 with St Andrews, which was the leadership course, and then we had various employees that did the level 5 and the level 4. So one was an actual first aid course and the other one was an awareness course. So we encouraged awareness everywhere. We encouraged people to do the first aid course, and we now actually have more first aid, mental health first aiders than we do actual first aiders. So that kind of gives you an indication. And then how do we measure the success of that? Well, it's quite tricky because it's a very confidential situation. We felt performance did improve because people felt they could have that conversation. They could come, they could speak to someone in confidence, and we would signpost. We would signpost whether it was perhaps someone who would maybe come forward and say, well, I actually do have a diagnosed condition. Oh, wow, okay, we didn't know that. Or someone who isn't aware that they probably need to be signposted in a way in order to get some help or potentially a diagnosis. So in doing so, it's just a nicer place to work. I honestly can say that. I mean, it's tough. We've had challenges since COVID. We feel the pressure in our businesses all over. People have less resource, so we're asking people to take on more work. There's got to be a point where they can come and say, I'm not coping, and feel that they'll be supported and not judged.
Thank you for that. So aside from the helpline, which I know that you're going to touch on, what else you have in your toolkit as a mental health first aider?
So in the toolkits, we're obviously issued with with our little books, and these are great. So I actually carry mine. I have 3. I have one at home. I have one. I have I have 3. I have one at home. I have one in what I call my work bag, and I have one in the office. And we refer to that. We also, as part of our health and safety, the mental health first aiders will get together, and not to talk about any specific cases, but to actually see, is there anything we should be doing? Are we sensing that, how is morale? How is things? Do we think there's anything specific in the company? We had a period of redundancies last year, which is obviously very stressful. So we were able to manage people through that and let them talk about that. So helping each other. I want to save the print and charity to the end. Helping each other, signposting them because we're not here to judge, we're not here to diagnose, we're only here to start the conversation, and ensure that if we feel there's something wrong, that we try and assess. Now, you can't obviously help someone who doesn't want to be helped. So we did a lot of posters, we did some internal communications, which the printing charity was part of that, so that if people were not comfortable discussing anything internally, they could go somewhere else. And that was where the printing charity partly comes in for us. Not everyone wants to have the conversation. People still feel shame. They still feel as if they're going to be judged. They don't necessarily want to tell their colleagues everything because they don't feel that connection internally. So you've got to have the various means of getting that conversation started in some way. So having publications, having your notice boards, having it on your intranet, ensuring that your managers know. All my managers are mental health first aiders now. They all are. And ensuring that they've got a way and a mean of taking it further. And it becomes quite intuitive. You actually start to read people very well and you think, oh, there's something not right today. So creating the chat. So the toolboxes are your books, your information, and actually sharing with your other mental health first aiders whether or not they're coping, whether they're able to, if they need some additional help or assistance as well.
So you mentioned about moving premises as well, so you're expanding next door. So how are you going to make that transition with all the information? You've got all the signposting. What does it look like next door?
It's looking good at the moment. We're still building offices. One of the parts that we do have is we will, for me particularly, I want there to be areas where people can still have that breakout. They can still go and have a confidential conversation somewhere. So it's we have built that into the plan to make sure that these areas still exist. We're all about the communication in terms of that, and people are actually very excited, which is good at the moment, because going through a period of redundancy last year, we're now in a period of change where we're actually building a new part onto the building, new machines. It's actually quite an exciting time. So we're on the up at the moment. Everybody feels up at the moment, but as every business knows, it's not linear, it's up and down all the time. So you've got to prepare your employees for the changes. We know that managing change is the most difficult thing to do, particularly with employees, because they don't like change, they don't want it. Sometimes they don't understand it. So trying to preempt how people are going to behave and how they're going to feel about things, give them the information as much as you can up front. It's difficult, obviously. You can't always give everyone all the information all the time. We've moved, the plan for the office has moved 3 times, so I don't necessarily want to share all the information at the same time. But if they've encouraged an environment where they'll ask questions, people will just walk in my office and say, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, sure. Because we have that open environment where they should be able to talk about anything. So I'm quite excited about the move next door. It's going to bring us all a bit closer together. We're going to have a nice big open plan office. At the moment, we're all over the building, which is a bit isolating for some people. I want us to have quite a collaborative approach and be together. And we have actually at the moment started to bring people into hubs, and it's working really, really well in terms of the communication and people getting to know each other. And that's actually quite key, I think, is people getting to know each other quite, so that they can have those discussions and conversations and feel safe. They've got to feel safe in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had the helpline since 2021, I believe. So for those who don't know much about what we do as a charity, every 4-5 weeks we send out mailers, don't we, Susan? So you will get something from me, along with your other people who are opted in to receive comms from me, and we will push out wellbeing messages, so then you can repurpose them within your business, can't you? So how have you found those sorts of messages from us over the years?
I find them invaluable. I think the overall services, because the first aid handbook's fine. The additional services that the printing charity has is absolutely invaluable to us. So when the information comes in, first thing we do is I sit and talk to my HR manager and I say, right, what we're going to do with this time. We will always publish the printing charity information, but it prompts us to think, all right, we need to be doing something internally as well, so that we will make an internal communication. So it prompts that. We actually have it as part of our induction. So as part of our health and safety induction, we talk about mental health, and we actually give out the printing charity details from day one, because the employee wellbeing is important from day one. And being a new employee can be very daunting coming into an organisation. So again, they've got that external, I'm not sure I'm coping, it can be difficult, and we don't know anything about them at that stage. So we try and capture that from day one. The additional services, and again, some of the HR people will know, I've encountered lots of very, very distressing situations in my time in HR. And for things like, having the helpline for financial help. And again, these are things that people don't want to tell you. Your employee doesn't want to tell you that they're struggling for money, or they can't pay their bills, and it could be because they've got a gambling habit, or they don't want to tell you that. So if you send something with that external party, there's no conflict of interest. They're not having to tell a manager something that the manager feels, whoa, I'm not sure what I should be doing with that. So that external signpost with all these additional services is absolutely invaluable to us. Within the Print Scotland hat that I wear, I actively promote that with the member companies. We obviously offer HR services, we offer health and safety services, and as part of that, I always say to them, you know, you need to make sure that if you're looking at your employee wellbeing, that the printing charity is part of that. It's a free service. It's for the print industry. You would be silly not to be using that in some shape or form, even if it's just for the you know, for the communications. And I often point our director Gary in your direction if we think there's something. He'll say we've got an issue, and I'm like, well, use the printing charity. They'll help out. They'll be able to do something for you in that regard.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, and I think that's one thing I didn't mention before, but you just said that then. We're here for everybody in the industry, so not just print, but paper, publishing, packaging, allied trades. So allied trades are companies like machine manufacturers, graphic arts, ink manufacturers. So we're here for everybody in the industry. And one thing that we probably don't say enough is to encourage people to put the number in the phone. Because if somebody needs it at the weekend and they've not got that number in the phone, we don't publicise it on the website, as you know, because it is a sign-up basis helpline. So it's really important in those initial conversations, isn't it, Susan, to say get the number in your phone, and you might not need it this year, but you might need it in the future for practical and emotional.
Definitely. I mean, we put it in the induction pack. We do put it in the induction pack, but for that very reason. But yeah, it's crucial to have that on hand. It's a little bit like I have it as part of my book. I have the numbers for that as well. So I have them in the 3 books so that if I'm at home I can give it out, and so it just forms part of my toolkit for that. But I can't recommend it enough. I can't, you know, I've had conversations with Nicola, if we've had a difficult situation, and, you know, they've always been very, very responsive to me and my company, and I can't recommend it enough.
Oh, thank you. I think we've got quite a few comments. I'm not sure. Can I just ask Liz, is there anything you want to?
Hiya, thank you both. Yes, we've got a question that's coming from Melanie, who has asked, what if we're short on space and there's nowhere for a confidential private space for a mental health first aider to take an employee for a chat? Do you have any suggestions? And thanks to Sarah for a good suggestion also in the chat. But Susan, let us know your thoughts, please.
So is there any reason why they can't go to the coast around the road or something like that? You know, we have had discussions off site. It doesn't need to be on site. Go for a walk. Yeah. I've even said to certain, you know, somebody who has, I've said to them, get out the building and just go and do something. So I know that you don't necessarily want your employees wandering all over the town or doing whatever, but if it's, depending on the situation, you might not have the space, but is there just an office somewhere that it's not to make it as obvious, you know, if people are disappearing into the chat room, it doesn't always necessarily need to be the case. It could be their manager's office, it could be my office. Doesn't necessarily need to be a designated room.
Thank you, Susan. Liz?
We've got pop up. Yeah, we've got a question from Joseph, who is asking if there is some kind of if there's any test that someone who's a mental health first aider goes through themselves to make sure that it's basically suitable for them, or they are suitable for the role.
That's a really very good. That's an excellent question, actually. I learned a lot about myself on this course, and I would say every single one of us has mental health issues at some point in our lives. You cannot avoid it. I have been on courses with people who've tried to take their own lives, who have had some serious clinical diagnosed mental health issues, and they are probably the best first aiders because they get it. So there's not a specific test. When you go through the course, you do sit an assessment test. I think within your organisation, most people we haven't forced a single person onto the course. I think very quickly they would know whether or not they were suitable for it. But it's a good question. It is a good question.
Thank you, Susan. Liz, anything else?
No more questions in the chat. I mean, obviously, if people wish to contact us separately, they're very welcome to, and we'd be delighted to answer any questions or sort of further conversations off the webinar as well, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. Susan, a massive thank you to you for your time
thank you.
and for your experience and knowledge. Thank you so much. We're going to end on the last slide here, Liz. So my some nice claps. Thank you very much, guys. And what a great
Thank
turnout.
you.
My contact details are here. It has been recorded. We will be sending the recording out to everybody who's joined today, but for those people where they may have had colleagues who couldn't attend, if they registered, they'll be getting the webinar. The webinar in the email. And also we are going to be sharing a lovely short video of a lady who accessed structured counselling that's going to be in the email, so look out for that as well. And for anybody who doesn't know much about us, all you need to do is get in contact with me. I will put you in touch with your local relationship manager. We have a wonderful team here at the charity. We have Gary, Rob, Marianne and myself. So please do get in touch, and thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I hope you've taken something great away that you can share in your businesses.